Hi, everyone. This is Christian Narvaez from Rayo Capital, investing the future of Web3 in Latin America and across the world. You're tuning to the Edge of NFT, your choice for gaining alpha on the latest Web3 projects. Keep listening.
Hey, Web3 Curious listeners, stay tuned for today's episode to learn how today's guest journey from selling sneakers to Wall Street shaped his vision for his VC and accelerator, and how DeFi is leveling the playing field in Latin America for access to capital and helping to solve the credit problem faced. And finally, why you should consider Roatan Island, Honduras, for your next vacation. All of this and more at the Edge of Rayo Capital. Cue the intro.
Welcome to the Edge of NFT, the podcast that brings you the top 1% of Web3 today and what will stand the test of time. We explore the nuts and bolts of the business side and also the human element of how Web3 is changing the way we interact with the things we love. This podcast is for the dreamers, disruptors, and doers who are pumped about this ecosystem and driving where it goes next.
Welcome to the Edge of NFT, the podcast created by Jeff Kelly, Ethan Jenny, and Josh Krieger, featuring a variety of top-notch guests and other hosts like myself, Richard Carthon. It's another production of the Edge of Company, a quickly growing media ecosystem empowering the pioneers of Web3 tech and culture, responsible for other groundbreaking endeavors like the Outer Edge Innovation Festival in LA and Riyadh. Today's episode features Christian Narvaez, the dynamic founder and managing partner of Rayo Capital, who accelerates and funds early-stage Web3 founders globally with a focus in Latin America, leveraging his extensive experience in finance and venture capital, including roles at Inception Capital, Rebel One Ventures, and BNP Paribas. Rayo Capital is a venture firm that accelerates Latin America Web3 innovators through a 12-week remote-first program offering guidance to legal frameworks, tokenomics, market strategies, and fundraising, while building a powerhouse community network for sustained support and long-term success. Christian, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Richard, for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
No doubt. Well, it's been a while since I last saw you, and you've done a lot in your history of working, like from hustling sneakers in NYC to founding your VC. So like, how did you even get involved in the Web3 space, and what was that journey to get here?
Yeah, so my journey in Web3, I always say it started, I bought the local top in 2017. And what does that even mean? Back then, I was working on Wall Street. I was actually living with a couple of roommates, and they were on the trading floor at another firm. So they started buying and selling crypto out of their own, personal accounts. And they would come, and during dinner, the conversation would be like, yo, we're looking at this, we're looking at this, we're looking at that cryptocurrency. And organically, it sparked some sort of curiosity. And I bought, back in November of 2017, to be more specific, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. And I did it with some research, but not enough to truly understand sort of the market dynamics and how it all worked from an infrastructure perspective. And sort of the market tanked about, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months later. And I never sold, but it was how I entered the market. And then I went down the rabbit hole in 2020.
That's awesome, man. And, obviously it's been a roller coaster ever since. At the time of this recording, it's August of 2024, and it's even been a roller coaster of a year so far. But I want to get back into when you're getting into this space. Of course, you build your firm and you build Web3 Familia. So like, how do those two synergistically work together, and then how's it fostering a global community?
So just for context, so I spent 10 years on Wall Street as an energy investment banker. And about after a decade, I broke into venture capital, and I've been in venture capital for about almost 5 years now. But in November of 2021, when I was working over at other firms, Inception Capital, I launched Web3 Familia. And what Web3 Familia was then, it started as a passion project to be able to bring resources to founders and developers that were Spanish speaking, right? There was a lot of, everything was done in English. Everything was sort of catered towards maybe it was just blindsided that I only saw things happening in the US. And me and my professional background, I covered Latin America for a whole decade. So I was very used to any resources that we had in the US, we would go to Latam, vice versa, right? And then I always was that bridge. And eventually what Web3 Familia became for us and where it is today, it is our top of funnel. It is our community and our events on. It's how we engage, attract, and sort of invest in early stage companies, and it's an important piece to the Rayo group, and its other and the other sort of verticals that we have within Rayo group itself.
That's awesome. And providing those resources back to native Spanish speaking founders, startups is incredible. And to be able to utilize all of the groundbreaking innovations that are happening through blockchain and kind of leveling the playing field of what we're seeing in the West. Because like you said, a lot of things are English focused, and but it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of very smart, very capable, very innovative companies that are building. And so to help bridge that gap and to provide some initial funding to get those projects off the ground, I think is really awesome. And but in that same vein, you've seen probably a ton of projects over the last several years. Uh, what are some of the projects that have come to mind, and what are the sectors that you think are starting to take more prominence as you look at 2024?
Yeah, so we're really focused on bridging that gap between TradFi, FinTech, and DeFi, the future of finance, right? Whether it's payments, remittances, stable coins, all the unsexy stuff like KYB, KYC, compliance on chain, FX hedging, commodities. That is sexy to me. That is sexy to us. But I guess those are the verticals that we're looking at in Latin America that are prevalent and sort of maybe are not so attractive here in the United States, right? I think a lot of the projects that we look at that are getting funded are more infrastructure plays, and I think in Latin America, it's not. I don't think we see a lot of projects more focused on the consumer side of things. Making sure that individuals in different countries, for example, in Venezuela, in Argentina, people need to have some sort of stability in their currency due to high inflation rates, due to political instability. So stable coins, that's why have been very popular in the region, and there's a lot of companies that have come about engaging in the payment space, in the peer-to-peer space, and the four major countries that are sort of, or the entrepreneurship that is coming from these four major countries, which are Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and Argentina, are the ones that are building those more consumer-focused apps.
Yeah, I like that, man. Like I've been in space since 2018. My personal background, I come from TradFi. Did wealth management with Merrill Lynch before getting more into the entrepreneurial scene. And one of the things that really resonated with me when I first learned about Web3 was the DeFi aspect of all of these highly tools that could be used to generate wealth, but not necessarily having those same tools for your everyday person. And cryptocurrency Web3 allowed to help start bridging that gap. And it sounds like it's very familiar with your experience and how it's translating to Latin America. So how, since investing in some of these different types of projects, like how are you seeing that continuing to evolve over in on that side of the world?
So, I mean, one major example is credit. Credit is really expensive in the region. It's obviously the rails that are being used are old and archaic. It's not as easy, like, for example, in the United States. Credit is pretty easy to come around, whether it's credit cards, personal loans, or as a small business owner. There's many programs that provide that. So a lot of companies have popped up, sort of opening up that market, whether it's microfinancing solutions, whether it's factoring, the factoring business on chain. We've seen a lot of that. And beyond that, just loans that leverage sort of DeFi rails to be able to open up credit to SMEs specifically. So that's obviously the space that we're looking at a lot, which is the SME and all the consumer side.
That's awesome. And providing that access allows for more players to enter and for more liquidity for people to be able to, whether it's from the peer-to-peer standpoint or even to the small business standpoint, having the ability to get access to this liquidity and start a lot of this stuff, which is great. but another part of that, the word access that I want to focus on is on your accelerator. So your fund has an accelerator that it's been using for the last several years and it's been making waves with helping a lot of companies get some of the foundations of what they need to be successful. What are some of the things that companies that have gone through your accelerator have experienced, and what has been the turnout so far?
Yeah. In building out the accelerator, we spoke to over, 300 founders and sort of try to hone in on what their major pain points were. And for us, we honed in on providing resources and support across legal, tokenomics, go-to-market, and fundraising, with legal being one of the major pain points that founders, early stage founders, have a sort of a hard time understanding what structures to leverage, to use, etc. Um, and yeah, the program has been, pretty happy with the program. Our last year's batch of 7 companies, they were building across DeFi infrastructure. They went off to raise over $10 million, right, in a bear market. So again, they were building more Web 2.5 consumer focused apps. And I think because of uh, the need that the market sees, obviously they were able to get back, and now they, some of them are still growing and attaining users, etc.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Congrats to your recent class. And like you said, raising 10 million during the bear market is a feat in itself, but also speaks to the lessons that I'm sure they were able to take from your accelerator to apply and have the right information they need to be attractive to other potential investors. So I want to talk about that a little bit more for people who are listening to this. Let's say they're in their startup or they're trying to fundraise and it has been challenging. What tools or aspects that has been for some of your different portfolio companies that have gone through the accelerator have been uh, the change maker to get people, to investors, to say yes, like let's move forward. I want to invest in you. Like what helps set them apart?
So I would say, I think access and signal. So what does that mean? I think I'm really happy and lucky to have worked over at other firms like Inception Capital. Specifically, when I say access and reach, also I was part of their fund of funds. We raised over 30. We raised a $30 million fund of funds, and I was able to map out globally the crypto GP ecosystem, where today I leverage those relationships to help the companies that come through the program have access to, whether it's GP or crypto VCs that are, their thesis is to back companies building infrastructure, whether it's DeFi, the payment space. So having that access, it might seem like common sense to you and I because we are in the ecosystem. We do travel the world and sort of have been able to cultivate, um, those partnerships. But it's not common sense, right? You don't know what you don't know. So having those relationships helps a ton in being able to bridge that gap from a funding perspective. But beyond that, also, for example, from a tokenomics perspective, right? We're working with Republic Crypto. We work with Superlayer. So building those strong relationships with established ecosystem players that not only have funded or worked with tier one projects that have obviously done very well. Um, they also now have, and there's a lot of interest in sort of reaching to a different region of the world that otherwise they wouldn't have access to, and that's sort of the edge that we bring. We're that bridge between sort of the U.S. and Latin America, and because there's intentionality in what we do, and it's the thesis that we are going after, right?
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think being able to be that bridge, and like you said, people don't know what they don't know. Being able to help them get a good foundation, a good stepping stones of like, okay, do these steps. Because what I found with a lot of startups is they have the energy and they have the willpower to like go and figure the stuff out, but sometimes they get in their own way because they don't necessarily, like, they might be going full speed in the wrong direction, but at least they're going full speed somewhere. To provide that guidance to kind of steer more in a direction that leads to more success helps a ton. So I think that's really good insight. As being a seasoned investor, and you get to see the forefront of blockchain and crypto evolve, and constant innovations. Obviously, you already spoke to what DeFi does and bridging the gap with people that don't have access to credit and to all of that. But like, what are the other aspects of blockchain technology that you think has the most potential and that you think will continue to evolve the space?
I mean, for us, right? We focus on the future of finance. So I think across, I already spoke about it, the SME ecosystem, the consumer, even across enterprise as well, right? The legacy banking rails that are used today are, pretty archaic and built, many decades ago. And I think um, looking at these builders that are building enterprise level solutions, leveraging blockchain technology, is also another space that we're looking at. For example, foreign exchange hedging, right? The commodities market is pretty big as well. So we've looked at a couple of companies sort of fractionalizing real estate as well, right? So to stay within sort of that realm where we stick to what we know, which is sort of the future of finance. I would say those would be two other areas that we're also looking to find solutions on at the enterprise capital markets companies that are optimizing the capital market stack as well.
Yeah, that is an area I too am personally looking at, because I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity in it. So it makes a lot of sense to be looking at that. I'm sure there's a lot of companies listening to this right now, as we do have an audience that is in Latin America, and they're like, "Wow, this sounds really awesome. I might want to apply." Like, what's that process look like, and what can someone do to help polish up their application to be seen better?
Yeah, we so at a high level, right? We like to work with early founding teams that have a good combination of a commercial side and a technical side, right? Someone that is has either built or has is a seasoned operator, and you've built the company in Web 2 and now are uh, in a discovery phase and want to tinker and build something or product in Web 3, combined with one of your co-founders being also someone that has a technical background, who's built infrastructure stack in Web 2, understands how hard it is to build a product, ship a product, and be able to go out to market and get users. I think having those seasoned either operators or seasoned tech folks as founding teams is the preference that we like to engage with. And then outside of that, for us, we like to see early stage teams that have some sort of traction, that they already talking to customers, and sort of have a proof of concept in place to be able to help them work and navigate and move forward, uh, and leverage the resources that we have to get them to the next level.
Yeah. All of that sounds good. And for everyone listening, you heard it here first on ways you can get started. Now, a, a challenge that potentially comes up in the world of DeFi and lots of other aspects of Web3 are the regulations, and how there's not necessarily extreme clear guidance on how all this is going to pan out. Um, what's your take on what's to come? And if you could wave your magic wand and make things a lot more clear with regulation, like what are the things that you would set up to help propel innovation forward as it relates to DeFi?
So I would say, to talk about regulation in America, I think there needs to be some sort of guidance or a sandbox put in place to be able to allow for entrepreneurs to build without being afraid of going to jail, without being you know um, shut down or being even arrested, right? So I think that's what we've seen a lot of that happen lately, and I think it does no good to our country, to our economy. If anything, it's pushing away great talent. It's pushing away also capital, right? And I think um, due to the fact that now it's our generation is more mobile, right? And we could build and ship product from anywhere in the world. Um, if you could do that somewhere else, like Latin America, like Mexico, like Brazil, like Argentina, where there's a lot of great talent as well, where it's easy to hire, why not do that? So I think um, forward looking, it would be great that sort of regulators, and I think we are advancing on those fronts, and I think there's a lot more attention coming to the ecosystem to Web3 in general, because it's an election year, and I think now it's becoming a bit. I hope that it stays bipartisan, right? But I think there's a lot of attention coming to it, and the hope is that some sort of sensible regulation gets put in place to allow for innovation to flourish, to allow for talent to stay, and to allow for capital to flow into these companies that are building within the United States.
Yeah, I hope it stays partisan as well. And it's in a lot of ways, I think the conversation around regulation has been brought up a lot because both parties are being forced to talk about it, which is great. And I think it's only going to, as more regulation comes in, the more money that's able to enter the space and continue to have really amazing innovations, both here in the States and internationally. But as we kind of wrap up this segment, you are now being an investor in the space for multiple years, having gone through and seen multiple companies go through accelerator programs. You have a very entrepreneurial spirit, and there's a lot of people that who listen to this show that are builders. What's some advice that you would um, give to these founders that are navigating both, I mean, not just the regulatory environment of the crypto space, but just everything that's kind of happening right now in this moment?
Wow. I don't think there's one right answer. I think at a high level, and obviously in engaging and working with founders and sort of launching and being a founder myself with Rayo, um, just continue to be curious. Obviously, whatever it is that you're building, whatever your North Star is, um, continue to push forward every single day. I think from a personal level or from an individual level, I would say you have to be patient with yourself. I think you have to take one step every single day, right? Be consistent with whatever the project you're building, whatever team you're building, whatever the culture you want, the company to have. It has to be consistent, and obviously, as long as you have a North Star, I think you're able to walk sort of towards that North Star, and as long as you stay consistent, um, uh, a lot of magic happens. But obviously, consistency, takes work, and takes time. And I think across all of that, from an individual perspective, um, a lot of founders, I think, the successful ones, sort of have empathy within themselves, within their teams, to be able to understand that sometimes, things don't will things won't move as fast as you want them to be, or projects are not going to pan out as you plan them to be. But as long as you keep a positive mindset and you, again, take one step forward every single day, I think good things will happen. And then obviously be realistic. If things are not working, and if things are, if you're bumping onto a wall, and things are not panning out as you want them to be, I think it's also um, necessary to know when to give up or pivot, right? And or raise your hand when you need help. So I know that's very general, but I think I would want to focus more on the individual and sort of understanding that one one self needs to be and have empathy, uh, because if not, you're gonna go crazy, right? Like I think building a company, building a community, building an ecosystem, I think it takes a lot of work, and if you're not doing well mentally, spiritually, nothing else, nothing else matters, right?
Right. I think that's really good advice. There are a lot of people who come from traditional jobs and aren't necessarily entrepreneurs and get into this, and then don't necessarily realize, like you said, the consistency that's going to take, having your North Star, knowing your why, and then also knowing like when is it time to pivot. How do you have empathy with those that you're working with? How do you continue to persist on when challenges are presented? So although very general, it's still a great reminder, and it's a great reminder for people who are constantly going, who are currently going through this, on how they can get back aligned with where they're headed and what they're trying to build. So I think that's really valuable advice, and definitely appreciate it. It's been great to get to know more about you and what you've been building, but now we're ready to learn more about you specifically, and we're going to dive into our next segment, which is called Edge Quick Hitters.
Let's do it.
And now for a quick word from our sponsor before we dive into the next segment. Are you ready to take your sports predictions to the next level? Look no further than maincard.io, the fantasy management platform that's taking the blockchain world by storm. With MainCard, every card is a ticket to excitement. You can predict sport outcomes, trade cards in the marketplace, and challenge opponents in thrilling weekly duels. And don't wait. Head to maincard.io now and start earning rewards with your NFTs because it pays to be early. And now back to today's episode. Edge quick hitters are a fun and quick way to get to know you a little better. There are 10 questions and we're looking for a short or single word response, but feel free to expand if you get the urge. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. What's the first thing you remember purchasing in your life?
Purchasing. Uh, I would say the big purchase, maybe when I was like 14, I bought my first phone, the Nokia, the brick.
Oh, yeah.
I worked really hard to buy that phone. So that was like that I recall having like it was a cool big purchase.
Yeah, that's an awesome purchase. And man, that phone lasts forever. Like you could, it is a strong willed phone, let me tell you. So what is the most recent thing what's the first thing you remember selling in your life?
Selling? I mean, I would say as a kid, I was like 14. I wanted to work, so I started selling. I love New York T-shirts in Manhattan Market over the summers. So that was something that I really liked, and I think I learned a lot of cool lessons in selling T-shirts, and then eventually selling sneakers as well. So, selling was sort of my first job and something that I like to do.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Building a lot of skills, barely selling in front of people, much of strangers. Like you build up a lot of skills that way. So I think a lot of early good skill building. What is the most recent thing you've purchased?
Purchased. What did I buy? I travel a lot. I got new luggage. I had my luggage for about like 6 years, so I think it needed a revamp. So got new luggage.
Oh, great. Yeah, man. With the amount of travel, it's good, especially having luggage that like they're able to drag very well. That has really good wheels. I found is like so important these days.
Compartments, my book bag, like I have a new book. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, awesome, man. What is the most recent thing you've sold?
Sold. Um, I I would say with when it comes to Web3 Familia, right? We're locking in a lot of great partnerships, especially in Latin America. So I would say we locked in a couple of great partnerships that we're going to work towards and announce later in the fourth quarter of this year.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on those. What would you consider your most prized possession?
My most prized possession. Oh, I would say I have two, right? I think from a capital front, Rayo Capital, right, where I want to build. It's the baby that I want to build out and sort of continue to work on for the next couple of decades. And I think we're in the early innings, um, but I think we we want to be able to sort of continue to add value to the startup ecosystem around the world, but obviously specifically Latin America. That's one baby, and then the other would be Web3 Familia. That's more of a resource, a vehicle or a resource channel, and it's for us. I think it's a win-win. Why? Because um, from one way we are able to funnel resources to founders early on in the incubation stage, ideation stage. And then in return, right, it's our top of funnel. It's the way that we engage, we identify top talent. And it's obviously actually out of the 10 companies that we have in our portfolio, all 10 of them came through the Web3 Familia funnel. So those are my two prized possessions.
That's awesome. Definitely on that, creating your own startup as well. So creating that and building up that momentum is something that's near and dear. So it makes a ton of sense. If you could buy anything in the world right now, digital, physical, service, experience that is currently for sale, and money wasn't an issue.
I don't, oof, that's a good question. Um, I'm a traveler. I love to just explore. So I'd say if Elon allows me, I'll buy one of his rocket ships and start exploring outer space and go to Mars or something. I don't know, something cool like that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, with all these different rides that basically have allowed people to be the first travelers out of space, like just from a retail standpoint, it's pretty awesome. But hey, you can be the first person to like, hey, if it's an option, you could go be the first person on
Uh,
Mars. That's pretty cool.
Maybe I'll park my rocket ship next to yours and Mars in the next decade or two.
I know, man. The way things are going, it's possibility. Um, if you could pass on one of your personality traits to the next generation, what would it be?
Personality traits. I would say um, I'm a mega extrovert and an optimist. So I would say, and I think being an extrovert has allowed me to be uber curious and learn from many people. And I think that has allowed me to normalize certain things in life, which have created opportunities. So I would say, yeah, I think positivity and always being like a glass half full type of individual has helped me just get through a ton. So yeah, man, optimism and just be uber curious.
Yeah, it's great. I think optimism is amazing. I think there's a lot of pessimism in the world, and I think social media drives a lot of that. So keeping the optimism alive is uh, very important. So I think that's a great one. On the flip side, if you could eliminate one of your personality traits, what would you? Which one would
If
you
I
pick?
could eliminate a personality trait, um, that's a good one. I would say I don't know if it's a personality trait, but I think also being too hard on myself or fighting that imposter syndrome. I think that comes in different levels and in many different situations. So I think it's something that one, it keeps me sharp, but two, it's something that I'm always fighting, and it's a fight that takes time to develop and like sort of grow through. So I don't know, uh,
No,
fighting.
it's a good one. It's a valid one.
Yeah,
I don't think I've heard that one on the show before, so I like that a lot. And uh, yeah, I mean, obviously you're doing awesome stuff, and sometimes it's good to be reminded from external factors, but also sometimes you just got to tell yourself that. So it's that's a good one to share. So I appreciate that. Um, what did you do just before joining the podcast?
I went for a run. I'm going out later today, so I couldn't. I usually do my runs at night, so I just went, got one out of the way midday, and so that's what I did. Run, showered, and got ready for this.
Nice. What are you going to be doing right after?
Oh, I have an event. I'm on the board of a nonprofit here in New York, and they're doing a social mixer today. So I have to go show up and say some words.
Awesome, man. Well, I hope you enjoy it and hope it's an awesome event. We always like to wrap up with a fun question, a bonus question. And since you brought up travel and it being one of the favorite things to do, what has been your favorite travel experience to this point that you would recommend for someone else to go check out
Yeah, across the world.
across the world? It doesn't have to be in the world, it could be in the States, wherever you want.
Uh, I would say earlier this year I went to Iflatam in Honduras, and off of the coast of Honduras, is a beautiful little island called Roatan. And actually, I didn't know this. So they have the second largest coral reef behind the Australian coral reef, and I was able to go scuba diving, and I felt like I was in Finding Nemo and swimming with all these. The water was super crystal clear, the weather was perfect, and the cool thing is that they also have a Bitcoin center in that island,
Wow.
and I was able to not only go and sort of hang out in paradise, but it was cool because I got to connect with a couple of people in crypto and Web3 in paradise. It's called Roatan Island in Honduras.
That is awesome. You gave me some alpha. Um, one of my dreams has always been I recently got my PADI certification to do scuba diving. Did that last year, and I'm taking my dream vacation, which is to go to the Great Barrier Reef, and I'm doing this later this year. And now, if this is the second best reef in the world, it's now on my list. So thank you so much for putting me
And,
on that.
and there's a flight from Miami to Roatan, which is straight. So
Oh,
it's
even more alpha.
even better.
That is awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, and good to know that there's a Bitcoin community there. So I'll have to go check that out, and I'm sure someone else listening to this now is probably gonna want to go check that out as well. But Christian, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. It's always great to know you a little bit more. We'd like to wrap up with a segment called Shout Out. So obviously, there's a lot that goes into making your firm and everything that goes on happen that doesn't necessarily get all the glory and praise. So this is your moment to give any shout outs to anyone you want behind the scenes for what you have going on. A quick word from our sponsors who's ready to navigate the cutting edge of tomorrow's legal landscape. Because at Zuber Lawler, they're not just attorneys, they're visionaries. With expertise in emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, and the metaverse, they're paving the way for you to seize the future. For mergers and acquisitions to IP, their selective team delivers strategic solutions tailored to the ever-changing world of technology. Join us at Zuber Lawler, where the future meets the law at zuberlawler.com. Back to the episode.
Man, I would say there's way too many people so it takes an army to build things. And I would just say thank you to all the partners, to all the mentors, all the advisors, and just the community that sort of sends us and is always coming in a positive way. So I don't think one person does it. I think it's just a lot of people across all those spaces that I just checked.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure everyone who's listening is going to be grateful to hear that. For everyone who is listening, they want to learn more. Where are places that people can learn more information and also get to connect with you?
Yeah, my LinkedIn, Christian Narvaez. You can just Google Rayo Capital. Our website, rayo.capital. We're also putting stuff, our newsletter. So we do we provide a lot of resources for founders, for developers in our Web3 Familia newsletter. So I would say if you're a founder, sign up. And if you're an LP, a GP, and you want to stay in touch with what we're doing, sign up to our Rayo Capital newsletter.
Amazing. Well, we've reached the outer limits at the Edge of NFT for today, so thanks for exploring with us. We've got space for more adventures on the Starship, so invite your friends and recruit some cool strangers. That's going to make this journey all so much better. How? If you're listening, go to Spotify, iTunes, or Myco right now, rate us and say something awesome. Or if you're watching YouTube, join over 130,000 other followers by hitting the subscribe button and passing this episode on to a friend or two. You can also catch us on Myco, that's myco.io, where you can watch and earn for your time and attention. Lastly, be sure to tune in to the next time to get more great Web3 content. Thanks again for sharing this time with us today.
The views and opinions expressed on Edge of NFT reflect solely those views and opinions of the show hosts and its guests. Please make sure to do your own research. Our show is not financial advice. You understand that you are using any and all information available on or through this podcast at your own risk. Whenever making financial decisions, we recommend doing your own research and talking to your accountant for financial advice. From time to time, we may feature sponsored content on the show for which we receive value, and we may share links for which we receive a commission if you make a purchase through one of those links. Refer to our website, www.edgeofnft.com, for our full disclaimer, terms and conditions, and privacy policy.